and welcome back to the number one podcast for garment decorators. My name is Molly and I'm joined by Andy today. Hello.
Hi, Molly.
You good?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good. And we're going to be talking all things heat transfer vinyl today. For those of you that have been tuned into the podcast for a while, you'll know that we talk a lot about custom heat transfers and heat presses on this podcast, but we haven't spoken that much about heat transfer vinyl, and that is still a massive part of what we and our customers do every day. So we're going to dedicate an entire podcast just to talking about that. So I've got some bullet points here that we're going to talk through just so that everyone listening can understand a little bit better about what heat transfer vinyl is and how it works and if they should be using it or not. And then we've got some questions that our customers have sent in over the last few weeks just to answer. So first up, Andy, tell us, what is heat transfer vinyl?
Heat transfer vinyl is like a raw material. It normally comes on a roll, about 50 centimeters wide. You can buy it in a meter at a time, but it's a raw roll of material that you can cut and weed into your own design, really. So it's like a blank canvas for specialty finishes. So if you've got a cutting machine, so we're talking like a silhouette, you might start out with, and then you might move on to a graph tech. But basically, it has a tiny blade on it that can etch out any design of your choosing, and then at the end of it you pull away all the excess vinyl you don't want, and then you're left with your wonderful design to fuse onto fabrics of any kind that you want to.
So we are home to Stahls heat transfer vinyl, UK home of Stahls Electronics. So how long is it? Is it 90 plus years Stahls have been manufacturing vinyl?
Well, I think technically they've been manufacturing,
because it's the first thing they ever did, right?
Yeah, so they started out making die-cut letters, and they put like heat adhesive onto flocked vinyl, and they've been doing that since the 1930s. I think technically heat transfer vinyl, as in the CAD-CUT vinyl that everyone knows and loves today, was about sometime in the 70s. It's kind of like,
so still a very long time.
Yeah, in terms of like everyone being able to buy like rolls of it. Rather than like normally, I think historically people would come to Stahls for pre-cut vinyl or flocked adhesive letters, and then at a certain point they decide to make it available on the roll for everyone else to buy as well
and cut themselves.
Which I think was the 70s. I believe. And
Stahls is obviously the number one heat transfer vinyl in the world. It's got its longest lasting, highest quality, most amount of colors, finishes, easiest to use. That's a big one when it comes to using vinyl. You've explained how it works already. So you basically cut your design out of it, weed away the excess, fuse it to your garment, and it's obviously applied to the garment using a heat press. So very similar to custom heat transfers. But what would you say the benefits are? Because some people might just be getting into the industry and not really understand the difference. So when would you advise somebody to use heat transfer vinyl over the custom heat transfers that we use all the time, or vice versa? Like because I know sometimes with like levers, for example, you wouldn't want to cut that in vinyl because it takes too long. So that's when you choose your transfer. But if you wanted something personalized, like just one, maybe you'd use vinyl for that.
If it was single color and you just wanted one and the detail's not too complicated, then I would use vinyl, probably anything under 10 units that's very easy and block text, then you could do it with vinyl quite easily. It's once you start getting to volume, then you're like, do you know what, I'd rather get someone else to make this for me when there's no weeding, because weeding can take a long time with complicated designs.
So it's more of an efficiency thing.
Efficiency thing, so I'd say that's one aspect of it. And that's when people tend to come to us for heat transfers, obviously. The other thing would be if it's a real specialty finish. So with heat transfers, you can do a lot, and you can do the full color stuff. When you don't want to do full color layering with vinyl, we do have printable vinyl, but again, you'd still be like 10 units is where you'd want to go up to, unless it's like just a circle or I don't know, sports numbers, which you can just easily run through quite quickly. If it's like got 3-5 unlimited colors, or then you'd want to have a transfer there. Or if it's like, I don't know, a glitter, then glitter always looks best as a vinyl. You
can't really do, I mean, you could try, but it wouldn't look
we have shimmer transfers which look really good, but I still think the
it's if you want that pigment,
they're really glittery, or if you want like flocked vinyl, is really nice.
One of my favorites.
But I'd say like glitter's a big one. Some of the silicone finishes as well, like the really chunky stuff, because our transfers are known for being really thin and feeling like part of the garment. Yeah. Sometimes you do want a raised effect, and you might go for silicone or high build, something like that, where you want to actually create that really chunky effect. In that case, vinyl will be the one to go for there.
Yeah. In terms of, you've just touched on my next question actually, which was around the finish of vinyl. Obviously, even though we have all of the different effects for vinyl, they feel different to heat transfers, whereas people ask us all the time what the difference is between screen print and ultra color, and apart from the color, the finish and the quality and the longevity is pretty much the same. Well, it is the same, but for vinyl, obviously that's very different, because everything has, whether it's, like you say, the flock, which has like a velvet finish, high build, which is 3D, sports film, which is probably the closest thing we have to a transfer finish, really, because that's the softest.
Yeah, if you were doing really, like if you wanted to prototype something for customers one color, I would use sports film or premium plus. You could easily get away with using that, because they're about the same thickness as transfers, and they've got a similar sort of finish to that kind of semi-matte finish that transfers are. So you could switch between the two as needed, or if you were doing like transfers and you wanted to initial loads of stuff, I mean, now you could just get a sheet of Ultracolor Max transfers, or
that's thrown a real spanner in the works.
It does, or if you've already got the machine, like a Graphtec or something, when you can do it really quickly, then you could still do the initials if that was part of the design together with it.
Yeah, I suppose it's a cost thing as well, isn't it? Like if you're already doing vinyl and you want a one-off or 5 or 10 or something, it might cost you less to do it in vinyl because you've already got the cutter, you've already got the material. Whereas if somebody who wants to do personalization who isn't into vinyl, it would cost them more to buy vinyl, buy a cutter, learn how to do it than it would to just order an Ultracolor Max sheet. So I suppose there's pros and cons to both, really.
Yeah, and depending on how your business is set up, like for instance, if you've got like a storefront or just like some sort of area where people can drop into your business because they want, like, do you know what, I need a t-shirt with this on it, then, and they're not going to wait till the next day, then, and if you can do it one color, or they want glitter, then why not just like, okay, give me a couple of minutes, I'll do it then and there, and then it's done, or they're happy, and then move along that way as well. So it's really good for doing on-site personalization as well.
Yeah, I do always forget, because obviously a lot of the work that we do is around custom heat transfers. It's majority of what we talk about. It's majority of the content we film. We use them in our lives all the time. And I think I forget, not that we do vinyl, but what it's like when you use it. And I last week was filming some content with it. And when you sort of peel the finished result off the glitter, you think, well, you cannot get that with anything else. Like, there's a reason vinyl is still such a big element to garment decoration, because I peeled off, I did flock, glitter and premium plus, and all three of them I was like, I forgot how amazing this was.
Well, it's a good place to start off with a lot of people, because it teaches you a lot of fundamental skills about heat printing as well, and I think it's something quite nice about being able to create and then cut it and weed it and infuse it, to kind of like have a hands-on with the journey to get it into a t-shirt or a bag. Yeah,
that was one of the first things I ever made when we came here. I still remember we did pink vinyl on a white bag, and I still had it up until a few months ago. I've lost it, I'll admit. But no, I think you're right. It's like learning the process, isn't it, of how to heat apply, and then custom heat transfers are sort of the next step, I guess. We haven't mentioned our brand new heat transfer vinyl. So while we're on the topic of speciality finishes, Chroma Twill Aurora. Aurora Chroma, you say it.
Aurora Chroma Twill.
There we go. Is our brand new heat transfer vinyl, which launched a month ago.
Yeah, we launched it around promotion. So they've been at the end of February.
Yeah, so it's quite a long time ago. Well, I say a long time ago. It feels like a long time ago, because so much happens here. But yeah, not that long ago, and it's been very popular so far, hasn't it?
Lots of people have really been enjoying it. It's quite a bit different to anything else that we've got from a vinyl finish. And again, that's one of the reasons that there's still a place for vinyl, because in this instance, it's a metallic twill style, and you couldn't create that with a transfer because you want that texture, the twill texture. But with that metallic finish on top of it as well, it's really quite eye-catching. And everyone that saw it at the show was just really sort of bowled over by sort of possibilities. You could see everyone we spoke to, and what's new, and you take them over to it, and you could just see the cogs starting to turn and be like, oh, I know a customer that could do that, or I could do this design with that. This has been what I've been waiting for.
I think we did well as well positioning it next to glitter, because anybody that likes or uses our glitter vinyl, I think they're the kind of people that would go for chroma twill, like straight off the bat, no hesitation.
Yeah.
And immediately people were just drawn to like that section of the vinyl wall because it was just so bright and really vibrant and had the sparkle effect to it. So.
Oh yeah, if anyone's listening that's got glitter customers, they need to order a couple of sample meters of it already, because it gives you, it's the newest thing on the market for vinyl, and it'll give you a chance to stand out when you go and pitch it for your next idea, or if they're asking for something a bit different but you didn't have a solution for them. Now you can be like, okay, how about this?
Now you do.
Yeah.
The thing that amazed me with it as well was not only the textures in it are so fine and so detailed, like you're literally cutting, I know heat transfer vinyl is a material, but it looks like a fabric material. But then also the almost iridescent side of it, like it looks, the pinky one, for example, looks pink in some lights, but then it has a slight gold tinge to it when you move it in the light. And it's not just here's pink vinyl.
Yeah,
a bit of an edge to it. Like you move it, and it's like, ooh.
Yeah, depending how you kind of move around the room, or if you had it wearing on, you would catch people's eyes, or have a different style depending, like let's say lighter or darker lighting in the room. It would take on some of that color, I think.
Yeah, it is a good one. How many colors do we have in that?
10.
I would say 9, 10.
10, yeah.
10. Yeah, so that's new on targettransfers.com for any of you using heat transfer vinyl. Moving on to, some of them are questions, some of them are kind of just things I wanted to discuss.
Okay.
Is about the longevity of vinyl. Is something we get asked quite a lot. Obviously, we talk about our transfer longevity all the time. What is the longevity of heat transfer vinyl, or Stahls CAD-CUT heat transfer vinyl?
Well, Stahls vinyl is, again, it's like everything else, it will last the lifetime of the garment. I think vinyl gets a bit of a bad rap, really, because there's lots of cheap vinyl out there. There's lots of imitation vinyl, and some of the stuff that you can buy even in the shops is cheap. There's a reason it costs like 50p for an A4 sheet of it, because it's just not very good, because it's not been made with sort of commercial pressures to make sure it lasts. So all of our products are built for big customers, and then we share that with everyone else, like all our technology. So sometimes people have bought vinyl and they've ironed it on. So they've got cheap vinyl, they've got a cheap way of applying it with an iron, and then they wonder why it comes off after 10 washes. So people think that vinyl, it's got a bit of a stigma that it's like a promo product or something that won't last very long. But if you buy good vinyl and you use a proper heat press, it will stay on there forever. The color won't fade. The texture, if it's like glitter, won't fade. The sparkle's not going to come off in the wash. It will just stay looking as good as that for, as long as that t-shirt has got thread in it, it'll just look just as good.
Providing you've applied it correctly.
Yeah.
Being one of the biggest things that we tell our customers day in, day out.
Yeah.
And obviously every vinyl has a slightly different application setting. So it's not a one size fits all, because all of the vinyls are different thicknesses, they have different cut settings, all of those
different
sorts
density
of things.
to them.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, cool. What's your favorite vinyl?
I think if I was having to do lots of it, I would say probably silicone, because
easier to weed.
It's the easiest to weed. It's one I always tell people, actually, because it's quite a new one, that actually it's easier to weed than even like your normal flex vinyls like our sportswear extra, which is like the go-to cotton vinyl. But I'd say it's the detail you can get on silicone's incredible.
That surprised me when I first tried that one as well, how easy it was to use. And
I quite like the sort of matte finish to it, the slightly raised effect. It can create quite a cool texture. So I think that's probably my favorite one. High build's obviously really good as well.
That's like silicone on steroids.
Yeah.
Basically. So for anybody listening that hasn't used our vinyl before, what's the difference between silicone and high build?
High build's a really chunky one. So it's 1,000 microns. But to kind of put that in a context people might understand, is imagine a normal vinyl transfer you have on your t-shirt and it's 10 times thicker, basically. And then silicone is, you've got multiple thicknesses that you can buy. Some of them are special buys, but the silicone 100, it's 100 microns. So it's not as chunky, but it doesn't feel like it's high build's 10 times chunkier than it. It feels quite raised still. But with that one, it stretches and it dye blocks. So you could use it for fashion, but you could also use it for like sportswear. A lot of anyone that's got like football tops or rugby tops, when they've got the manufacturer's logo on the like right or left chest and it feels a bit raised, that's normally going to be silicone.
Okay.
So you can get some really cool effects that way.
Yeah, high build would be way too chunky for something like that, wouldn't it? I mean, I know we've had people put it on sweatshirts and it looks amazing, but you wouldn't want to run around the football pitch with that on.
No, and you wouldn't. And a lot of football logos are quite detailed, which you could get with silicone, but you couldn't get with high build.
That's a good point. Yeah. So what is the recommended thinness, I was going to say, for high build? We've had some customers do some really thin designs. I guess it just comes down to sort of testing it, doesn't it, for yourself and seeing what you can do with your
I mean,
cutter.
you can do really fine detail, but you probably would spend quite a lot of time weeding it to be like really careful to make sure you didn't pull anything away that you didn't want. Yeah, exactly. So which isn't, unless you're charging that cost of you weeding onto your customer, which I'd be surprised if they want to pay. It's not as good, but really the chunky vinyl, chunky designs is the best way forward anyway.
Yeah. Have we actually got any high build in? I know that we've got it in stock in the building, but we had some left over from Print Run Promotion, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've still got some.
Yeah, we've got lots of designs. It looks really good on hats. So we've still got quite a lot of pre-cut stuff for hats. Yeah.
They want to see it on the 360, don't they?
Yeah. So it's really good for that. It's really chunky because with the right hat press, you can put it over different panels and over seams on hats as well. And it looks really, really good that way.
I really like it on sweatshirts as well. And I know that we recommend, obviously t-shirts it would probably be too thick for because you'd feel it a bit too much.
Yeah.
But those thicker sweatshirts with like a bit of chunky text along the front, I don't know, that's a bit of a trend at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks really good that way. Yeah.
I think it adds a real premium effect to the garment without it costing you a fortune. Then, it's quite a good way to do it.
Yeah. What about you? Do you have a favorite vinyl?
I mean, all of them, man.
Okay.
All of them. I don't know. I think I do love the flock, but then I contradict myself because I don't like velvet. Velvet kind of freaks me out. If I touch it, it makes me go a bit, ooh. But I love the way the flock looks. It looks really premium. Yeah,
there needs to be a new word invented really to describe flock, because velvet is not quite accurate, is it?
No, it's not as like sheeny as velvet, I guess.
Yeah.
I love the glitter. Everyone loves the glitter. I think I like Premium Plus, but solely because it goes on, because it can stretch so much. Like, it amazes me how much you can stretch it and it just pings back again.
Yeah.
So probably Premium Plus from that perspective, but again, high build for like that sweatshirt effect is probably I've just listed like 4.
Yeah. I think if you're decorating like t-shirts or hoodies, I would sometimes go with Premium Plus because I think I like the slightly more matte finish to it that you get with that as well.
Yeah, agree.
Even if you're not going to even if the garment doesn't need to stretch, it still it's kind of almost like a transfer or screen print finish to it.
Yeah, and I suppose it doesn't really matter, does it? Because I mean, it stretches a little bit when you take it off, but you can't tell the difference, can you?
No.
Okay, so let's move on to some customer questions. So one of the ones that we get quite a lot from people that are new to the garment decoration industry is when to choose HTV over transfers and vice versa, which we've already talked about. The next one is, how do I know which side of the vinyl to cut and fuse? Which I got wrong when I first ever used vinyl. And I think it can be quite confusing for people because you cut into the side you stick, but then that seems a bit contradictive. So just someone that's never ever used it before and they got it out the box, how would you explain?
Yeah, so if you got it out of the box, then if you either feed it into your machine one way or another, either on a mat or feed it directly into a machine, but it always goes shiny side down. So that means when you pull your vinyl out of the box, there'll be a slightly shinier side, and on the back it'll be slightly more matte, because the shiny side has the carrier on, which you pull away once you've fused it.
So that's the bit that you get rid of eventually.
Yeah, and you don't get a shiny side on the back. It's always slightly more matte. It's either completely white or it's like a coloured version of the vinyl.
Yeah, a slightly dimmed down version of the colour, isn't it?
So that's always, I mean, it's always comes rolled, so the shiny side is on the outside nearly all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So then when you open it up, the back will be the back. That's always the way to look for it, shiny side down, because like you say, you tend to, because you take away the excess from the back, you do cut in reverse, so that when you put it onto the t-shirt or the hoodie, whatever it may be, it's reading the right way.
Yeah, I think that confuses a lot of people, me included initially.
But we've got lots of videos on how to we should do a shameless plug for the series of videos we did with GraphTech, where we've gone through pretty much every single material and done like a 2-3 minute video of how to cut, weed and fuse all the different settings for using like a GraphTech machine, so that everyone can follow along and try it for themselves that way. Yeah,
and they are also all on the product pages on our website. So if there's a particular vinyl that somebody wants to use, e.g. sports film, premium plus, high build, etc., if you go on to look for that product on our website, the video should be directly linked there, so you can watch it all before you decide to purchase. What's the best vinyl for sports items like leggings?
Definitely premium plus. So premium plus, because it has that stretch, it's definitely the best one to use, because it doesn't matter what the leggings are being used for, how much hard work they're going to be put through. The vinyl can stretch and rebound with the person that's wearing them.
Sorry, as I say, the amount you wash leggings as well, or sports items, like you literally have them on for like an hour and they go in the wash, and then another, like they get bashed in the washing machine.
They have a hard life,
and they do, and that vinyl will stick on there for the lifetime.
And then I guess there's also a premium plus subly stop. So for
that's
instance,
worth mentioning.
So anything that is a sportswear, sometimes it's there to get the, like, especially like the reds, they're heavily dyed to get to that point. And sometimes if you're using a white transfer vinyl, the color behind it wants to try and like bleed out into the vinyl, into the transfer. So we have something called Premium Plus Subly Stop, which has an extra layer of blocker, a bit like our Subly blocker transfers. And that means that it stops any bleed through going, so that you can have stretch and your design still stay looking just as good.
Yeah, that is a very important one to mention, especially for our customers that are doing a lot of sportswear, because I think we get that issue come up quite a lot when people start out using vinyl and they don't realize that things have been sublimated, because unless you've made that mistake, almost, you're not going to know.
You could use silicone as well. Silicone 100 will dye block, stretch, and look good. But with Premium Plus, you get
superior stretch.
You get superior stretch, and you get like 50 colors. So, I mean, pretty much anything you want to create, you can do now.
Yeah, silicone is great, but it does have a limited color bracket, doesn't it? I think it's around like 7 or 8 or something like that. This one I like. It says, not a question, but just a reminder to flip your design. I've made that mistake before. So for those of you, as Andy's just explained, for those of you that are new to using vinyl, you do have to flip your design before putting it through a vinyl cutter, because otherwise you will end up sticking your design on backwards to your t-shirt. Something we've all done. How do I know which vinyl cutter to get? There are so many to choose from. So we obviously sell the GraphTech and Silhouette range, which go from beginner all the way to really advanced, when you'd have sort of 10 of them going at the same time. But at what point should people switch volume wise to, I suppose it depends on designs as well, like how quickly you want it to churn out the stuff.
And anyone could, if you've never done it before, then I'd say start out with a Silhouette machine probably, because they're inexpensive. They're about £350. Anyone can learn how to use them.
I can use it.
Absolutely anyone could get away with it. We've got, and then there's videos and tutorials on how to use it. I'd say it really comes down to volume. If vinyl is your chosen route because you want that specialty finish, you're like, well, it's going to be vinyl because I'm going to be doing lots of it, and I'm going to do it in high build or glitter, whatever it may be. After a certain point, you need that machine to go even quicker, and if you want it to be even more detailed. Basically, what you pay for is you pay for a more expensive motor and a more advanced motor. So when that little blade is moving around and etching into the back of your design, GraphTech can do that more detailed. It can do it quicker. You could let it do a whole 25-meter roll at once if you wanted it to. You could just set it going and walk away from it, and then you could have all your work done and cut for you, just ready to weed. So it can do its volume really. So once you start to get into volume, then you're like, okay, now I need a faster, more advanced cutter.
Can you imagine cutting 25 meters worth of stuff on a silhouette?
Exactly.
It wouldn't happen.
No, you'd be there for days probably.
Yeah. And the Graphics are so much quieter as well.
Yes.
Like, you wouldn't even hear them in the corner. They could be churning away for like hours and you'd be like, oh, it's not even on.
Yeah, but it's really easy to switch between the two because the software is basically the same. And then once you've learned to use one, you can, and if you were already going straight into glitter and you knew you had volume for it, you could start with the GraphTech. You could, we've got these tutorials up now and you can go and look at it and see the software and things like that. It's actually really quite easy to use.
Yeah, I think it's almost like the safe bet, isn't it? The silhouette, like people go for that one as their starting point. But if you are doing this as your business and you want to have a vinyl decoration business, then the GraphTech would be the go-to straight away. Especially
for like the thicker vinyls as well, because you can put more advanced blades into it as well. So for things like if you're doing lots of flock or high build, you can get special blades that have a slightly different angle to them and can move quicker.
Yeah.
So anyone could use either of those cutters to get started with. It really depends on budget and what you're looking to achieve with your business.
Yeah, we have had customers cut high build on a silhouette before. Don't ask me how. I've no idea, but they managed to.
You can do it if you get the right blade. You can do it, but that blade won't last
probably do
forever.
Like 3 t-shirts.
Yeah, exactly. You won't get. It won't take a while to do, and you'll go through the blades a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But you can sharpen the GraphTech blades. You can get them sharpened by us if you go through them to. So if you, rather than having to replace them every time, you can send them in or sharpen them for you and send them back.
Yeah, it's a lot more efficient.
Yeah.
So while we're on the topic of starting out in vinyl, what would you say the best vinyl to use when you're just starting out is? Would you go straight in for the sports film?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think it's the easiest one to use. Because it's the number one seller for us worldwide. It means that you got so much technology into there. It's quite forgiving. And it's a good one because, like, if you're just doing, say, T-shirts, it's the one you're going to use nearly all the time anyway.
Black and white sports film.
Everyone
should have at least a roll.
Exactly, yeah. So I'd say start off with that one because that's the number one. That's the go-to, and probably a lot of your work will end up being that anyway. Because even if you give your customers all the choice in the world, they often end up with black or white anyway.
Yeah. And worth mentioning on sports film as well, you can layer it.
Yep.
Whereas you obviously can't on some vinyls, so like glitter and flock, because they've got like not a completely smooth flat surface. You can't put something on top of them, but you can put sports film on sports film. You can put glitter on sports film, flock on sports film. And that's, I think, a really cool effect because even though obviously with transfers you can do as many colors as you like, I think being able to almost custom create something like that with vinyl is really fun, and it does look really good. Ways to make weeding quicker.
I mean, there's lots of different tools and accessories we've got for that. So, I mean, one would be if the design's really complicated, get it done as a transfer. Anyway, that'd be one way of make it. Then there's no weeding. But if it's like glitter and you've got to do it and it's got to be detailed, then first step is the LED weeder. So you can get special. When you're pulling away the vinyl, you can get we have what we call a weeder, but basically it's like a tiny little hook that's perfect for pulling vinyl away from its carrier. But we have one with a special light on it, so it means if you've got a really complicated design or the vinyl's got a white backer on it and you want to try and find the cut lines, you can use the weeder to find it. That's a good place to start. And then all the way up to something, we have what we call a heated weeding table. So if you're doing lots of volume, I would highly encourage you to get a weeding table because it warms the vinyl up just enough so that it makes it slightly easier to pull away the excess. But the amount of time you can save is it's 80% quicker when you're doing volume work.
Yeah.
So that time you get back is invaluable, really.
And for those of you that are new to this, the reason that the weeding table works from heat is because obviously the vinyl is attached to the carrier, and in order for that to come away, the adhesive on the vinyl has to melt slightly to attach it to the garment. The weeding table does that, but ever so slightly less than the heat press. That won't completely come away, but it will loosen it enough for it to make it easier to pull away. Yeah,
it's very ambient heat. But it's also
nice word.
But it's also got the right clip attachment at the top, so you can just clip your vinyl onto the top, let it sit there, and it will stay on. And it's got
it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, exactly. We've had one in the studio, and they just love it.
It's huge as well, isn't it? Like it's not just for one design. It's like,
yeah, you can do a lot with it.
It's not quite a meter, but you can get a decent size.
Yeah, you can get the whole roll width on it as well.
Yeah, it's quite big. And the final question I have for you today is, which vinyl would you use for fabrics that have like a coating on them?
It's probably would end up being like the Premium Plus Sobley Stop, I'd imagine. Assuming that the coating is for like a waterproof or something like that, perhaps. Because it's slightly stickier, can be, and because it's got the stretch in it, it means depending if that material is going to move around a bit, it makes it a bit more durable that way. That's a good place to start with.
So and testing as well, like we always say.
Yeah, always test. Yeah, that's the thing with vinyl is that, and this goes back to one of our first ever episodes when we had Darren on talking about high build, is that you've got to be prepared to try and find the limits of vinyl. So one of the important things I always tell people is, if you're going to get a cutter, if you're going to offer vinyl to your customers, is you've got to try and find where the limits are. So you've got to, I always say, try and maybe like do an alphabet and do like a letter A, but doing it in loads of different fonts and sizes.
Yeah.
And then the ones that you find are really hard to weed and it takes too much time, that's where the limit is, because you don't want to spend your time doing it. So try and break it, try and do really fine detail, try and weed it too quick, weed it too slow, just to see what happens. And then you'll find a rhythm to it, so you know exactly what to do when someone orders it that way.
Yeah, I've made that mistake before, where I've gone to pull away the entire carrier sheet and where it's been a slightly more, not even a detailed design, but I just have pulled it too quickly and it's lifted the cut line completely off, and it's cut perfectly fine. It was just the fact that I ripped it too quick, and I think I've managed to stick it back down and sort of go over it. But just silly things like that, you do it and you think, oh, that'd be fine, and then you go, oh, whoopsies. And you know, you have to learn from your mistakes with stuff like that, don't you? And when people message us in and say, oh, will this work, will that work, and we go, well, we can give you the basics of, this is what the product is, this is how you work with it, and this is what it's used for. But in terms of everything else that you could potentially do with it, try it for yourself, because there's absolutely no way that we could put every single type of vinyl on every single garment under the sun. And you know, there's just too many options, isn't there? Which is a good thing for business owners, but trial and error. Trial and error,
yeah. Just be prepared to spend time doing a bit of research and development on it, but once you've done it, you'll be fine. It'll be easy from that point onwards.
Yeah, I remember you saying to me when we had this discussion initially, you could spend 1-2 hours, half a day even, figuring out how to cut high build, for example, which most people would be like, oh, that's like such a task, I can't be bothered. But then how many hours or how many jobs are you going to do it wrong, waste your high build, waste your garments, waste time? Like, it's a much more efficient way of figuring out.
Yeah, and so many people, lots of people give up after sort of only trying for a short period of time because it doesn't work. But if you spend the time and have some patience with it, it can be really rewarding. We've got customers that are doing fantastic work with vinyl, just either putting on hats or hoodies, and they've kind of find their niches. And we had that person that Print Around Promotion. I can't remember what he said. What did he say about vinyl? Has it changed his life or something like that?
Oh, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, I think it was the glitter. He's fallen in love with glitter.
How is he fallen in love with it? Yeah.
But yeah, he stood by the glitter vinyl wall for a good 20 minutes. Yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover today. If anyone has any further questions on anything to do with heat transfer vinyl, then definitely comment down below. We'll be happy to answer them for you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, just to echo what I just said. Is really just to trial and error, make sure you give it a go. You can buy a meter at a time.
Yeah.
So it's not a big investment to buy the material. You kind of start out about like around the £5 mark to buy a meter. Most expensive one is like £12, but you can get lots and lots of designs out of a meter.
Yeah, it's big.
Think of your vinyl meter like a gang sheet if you're already ordering transfers. Put as many designs as you can, as close as you can get away with doing it. And you can make a lot of money from vinyl. It's still a very profitable product. I mean, a 25 meter roll, I think we worked out if you're doing, say, 10 by 10 centimeter designs onto a 25 meter roll, you could potentially make sort of like about £15,000 profit from each roll.
I think it was like 17.
17, yeah. Well, there you go. Then you can make a lot of money from it. So
yeah,
it's definitely one to have as an option in your business. If you already got heat press, especially, you could easily pick up the skills to do it.
Yeah, it doesn't take much, does it?
No.
But yeah, that brings us to the end of the podcast. So thank you everyone very much for listening. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We upload new podcasts every single Thursday, and we'll be back next week with another episode.